Yes, thank you for joining us this morning. The just concluded general elections have revealed the sharp ethnic, religious, and demographic fault in the country. I mean, this is a sad observation, but unfortunately it is the truth. And this all happened in spite of the signing of the peace accord by candidates and their political parties. The UN, in its assessment, says that since Nigeria is standing at a crossroads, engagement in genuine dialogue involving all the stakeholders would be pivotal in calling for accountability to restore confidence in the governance process. This is what we're going to look at this morning, and we have a heavy-duty panel to help us look at this. Because, I mean, I have a big issue with how did we get here. It's my pleasure indeed to welcome Chief Edwin Igbokwe, Pioneer General Manager, The Punch newspapers. Good morning.
Thank you.
Joining us via Zoom from Uyo is the founder of Nigeria First, Ezekiel Etuk. Sorry. Hi, Ezekiel. Morning.
Thanks for having me. Yes, thank you.
And Dr. Shuaibu Mohammed of the Department of Political Science and International Studies, Ahmadu Bello University, joins us from Zaria. Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning, Ma. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Good. Chief Igbokwe.
Yes, ma'am.
The elections have come and gone, and we noticed all these things that I listed. I'm going to be very direct with my question. How do you think we got here?
I wouldn't say I'll be able to answer that. But I can tell you that it is a departure from what used to happen before. I'm not a politician, but I have been in politics, supporting politicians. The only time I attempted was when Shego Shoba told me, because I was General Secretary of Newspaper Proprietors Association of Nigeria, and he was president. So he said, Edwin, I'm going to Ogun State to be the governor. Go to Anambra and be the governor. I said, oh yes, he's alive. I said, no, I don't like politics. You know, I was still younger than, because I joined Punch when I was 20. I joined Punch when I was 21 as in the accounts department, then group finance controller 3 years later, and then Pioneer General Manager at the age of 26. And that was when I got married to my wife, late Christia Senibukwe, who was 19 years then. So when Shego said that, I said, no, I won't get. But you see, fortunately, every person is a politician. Everybody is a politician. That's what I come to realize.
Active or otherwise?
Active or otherwise, thank you. Because any achievement a nation makes is through politics. Be it, I still consider military as politics. Let's face it. But we're talking about democracy. So during Abiola's time, I can rightly say that when Abiola was signing the press release, to confirm that he has made Kingibe his deputy or vice, we were only 5. Myself, my wife, Adedibu, Olufalaye, but I was there before they came in. Adedibu was inside there in the house, upstairs. My wife told me this is what the situation is. So I flew down because I went to Port Harcourt to go and arrange for some, how do I put it, media debate with then a newspaper that was printing in full colors. Let's keep it that way. Then my wife said, the result has come. Kingibe is the deputy. So I flew down. When I flew down, we went to his house. He was inside the room. Adedibu was seated there. There's this guy, I wasn't a politician. Abiola had been a father, a family friend to us, to the Bokwes, through Olu Aboderin, who happens to be my mentor. Then they said Kingibe is now the deputy. Then Father came in and said, Edwin, where is Presido? Because we call him Presido. Says inside. And he went and knocked. He came out and he told us, without looking at us, the reason why Kingibe became the vice. So we were there discussing. There are certain things I wouldn't like to mention here. But by the time it was done, we entered the dining upstairs before Nsikak Essien, who happened to be the editor of Concord, brought in the release saying that he has now accepted this person as the vice. That was the beginning of my getting into politics. I was dragged into it. So we went on, then people continued coming and the whole place was filled. But by the time he signed it, I was the one that said, oh, Presido, you have not put dates. Then he added it by hand.
You know, just so it doesn't look like we're punctuating this conversation.
Yes.
I see that in all of these conversations so far, it's not been relegated to just people from a particular segment of the country.
Yes.
It seems everyone has been there.
Which is why I think he's telling this story.
Exactly. So there is a south-south
You are
southeast.
Yes.
There's a Yoruba
Nsikak,
Is South.
Abiola,
Yes.
Kingibe,
Yes.
Adedibu.
Yes.
So that bond was there all the while.
Yes. Was there all the while.
Okay.
Now,
just a second, so that we can open the conversation with other people.
Yeah.
Dr. Mohammed, if you can hear us, one of the things I want to find out, maybe I'll let Alera ask that question again. How did we get here to the place where we're segregating ourselves ethnically, religiously, demographically? We are one nation, one country, one Nigeria, yet we're pig-eating the country like we are some pizza.
Thank you. Hope you can hear me clearly.
We can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay, good. Let me start by making some clarifications. It is good for Nigerians to understand what politics itself is all about and what democracy, that's the liberal type of democracy we are practicing, what should it be. For instance, when you take politics, it simply means authoritative allocation of values in the society. Authoritative, meaning legal allocation of values. Now, those people in authority must be elected by people. And it is a responsibility to allocate values which can be economic resources, which can be political appointment for the development of a country. That's what politics should be. Then democracy simply means popular participation of people into their governmental affairs, either directly or indirectly. Directly, it can be, person contesting for an election, winning election in order to rule, while indirectly, the electorate go out and elect. Now, historically, Nigerian democracy, or the liberal type of democracy we are practicing, was imposed on us. Even though, let me start with the positives. In 1922, when Clifford Constitution, came into being, it introduced elective principles, meaning Nigerians now can be elected and participate in their governmental affairs, where we had 3 representatives from Lagos and 1 from Calabar. The most interesting thing is that in 1946, that's when there was proposal for amendment of the Clifford Constitution. It was the representative of Calabar that seconded the motion that the northern part of the country should be part of, the governmental affairs of the country. If I could remember I think it was Honorable Okon Offiong. He was very happy that now Nigerians can come together and discuss about their issues. Even though the Constitution came with regionalism, and that's the beginning of this segregation, whereby the country was divided into Eastern region, Western region, and Northern region. And, there were a lot of debates in the assembly then.
So just 1 second, Dr. Shaibu.
Yes.
Was that a wrong move by the political class at the time to create those regions? One would have thought that those regional arrangements were more for administrative purposes as opposed to governance.
It was the colonial regime that did the creation. And Nigerians, when you look at it, when the regions were created, those people from the north were not even consulted because they were not part of the assembly then. Only representatives from Lagos and Calabar, they were part of the legislative council. Now, it was for colonial administrative convenience, even though it had some negatives on the development of Nigeria, because one region was more than the other two regions. And there were a lot of complaints by the people from the western part and people from the eastern part. Now the colonial masters felt that for convenience, that should be the best arrangement. Having said that, this issue of divide, as clearly presented by Professor Peter Eke, that this colonialism came with this divide whereby two publics were created. There's what you call civic public and primordial public. Now the civil public is where the central politics is being played, while the primordial politics has to do with people coming back to their regions, coming back to their ethnic groups. And this also affected the development of Nigerian state. Again, when you look at the early political parties, with the exception of NCNC, were somehow tribal associations that were later transformed into political parties. Mostly the NPC, Jamia Mutana Arewa, the Action Group by, please don't mind my pronunciation, Egbe Omo Odudua. It was SNC that started as a nationalist party, even though later changed to also regional party. Now, all these dynamics contributed to what we are currently, the divide.
Well, Dr. Mohammed, it's a good background that you have laid for us, and I mean, at least now we have an idea of where all of these things are coming from. And by the way, you didn't do too badly with the pronunciation. We may not be able to give you an award for it, but you didn't do it too badly. Well, Mr. Yetok, you've been listening to this conversation, and you are in politics, and it would seem like a lot of the rhetorics almost always came, first of all, from politicians who try to exploit the frayed, fragile fault lines of the country. Has it always been like that?
Okay, first, thanks for having me, and I want to give a shout out to all Nigerians and then welcome them. I don't know if I can say welcome back yet, because we don't seem to have them fully returned. But let me say this. I want to thank the doctor for giving us very intellectual backgrounds, but let me come to a more practical, down-to-earth definition of what we are discussing today. Politics is the door that leads into the room called governance. Governance, by right, should be the management of the resources of the people in the larger interest of the generality of the people. Within that context, service should be the essence for seeking public office. But unfortunately, government has become that instrument of state capture for personal gains. And because the returns on that investment is so much, it is such that it has nothing today to do with service, but everything to do with personal gains. To that extent, therefore, people play dirty. People go out of their way to seek what they call strategic advantage. It is within the context of strategic advantage that you go to somebody and say, you know what, that guy is a Muslim. You know, this didn't start today. In the Bible, there was a lady that was just trying to take hold of a young guy, you know, called Joseph. And somewhere along the line, Joseph said, no, I can't do this, not right. On one occasion, she rushed at Joseph, and Joseph had to abandon his dress and flee. And guess what she said? She called the people and said, can you see what this silly Israelite is doing to us? Us, not her. So with that, she was like, these people are doing this to us, thereby evoking the sentiment of the people, the generality of the people. So it's always about taking strategic advantage for your personal gain. You know, he's a Muslim and we are Christians. We can't be isolated. You don't say what your interest is, but you are taking advantage of the vulnerability of the people. You know, they are Northerners and we are Southerners. You know, they are from the East, they are Igbos and we are Yorubas. We say those things to gain strategic advantage for our personal gain. And unfortunately, the gullible public is not thinking the way they should. Because you ask yourself, I'll give you a very, very good example. When, I don't know, let me leave that for now. But the important thing is that that guy that was from your area, okay, let me give a general example. Look at NDDC. When Jonathan, former President Jonathan was the president, and then came the immediate or the current president, when was NDDC better funded? Under President Jonathan or under our current president? To the best of my knowledge, NDDC is better funded during the tenure of our current president. Secondly, look at in Akwa Ibom State. When my Oga Obongata was the governor, he had no road to his place. Akpabio came and did the road to his place. When Akpabio was the governor, I was almost irrelevant as an Anang person. But when my brother, my Oga Ata was the governor, things went well for me. People don't think in terms of the returns on the person that is on the office. Now, what makes you think that because Ashiwaju is a Yoruba man, or because Peter Obi is an Igbo man, or because Atiku is a Hausa man or Fulani man, that you are going to be better off? We need to be able to bring that conversation to a point where we look in terms of, number one, the gains of the office, and make service the essence for seeking public office. For as long as we do not conquer that and make public office a state capture instrument, for so long will people look for strategic advantages and they will exploit our fault lines. You know, we are Christians, you know, we are Muslims, you know, we are Northerners, you know, we are Igbos, you know, we are. They never say this in your own interest, but for their own personal.
Ezekiel, just a moment. Interestingly, Chief Igbokwe started with the Abiola example. Abiola, a Yoruba man, his vice, a Hausa man. And if you think back, I don't think that the fact that it was a Muslim ticket was discussed in any kind of big measure.
Maybe we should ask Chief Igbokwe
at that time. And people went out overwhelmingly to vote for that alliance, not minding whether they were Hausa, Yoruba, or whether they were Muslim, or whatever. Nigerians trooped out and voted for them.
Question. you know, after the military, we sought a kind of emancipation. Within the context of emancipation, we look for whosoever is like the coach of the Nigerian football team. We don't care where you come from. All we care is, are you competent to get us to the World Cup? Are you competent to get us to win? The moment we bring our mentality to capacity to deliver personal dividends, we will make progress. That's what happened at the time of Abiola. Everybody saw MKO as this liberal Nigerian who was going to work for us and make life better. So we never thought in terms of, whether where he comes from or what religion that they exhibited. We didn't care that. It's like the national team. There was a time we played Cameroon, I remember very well, and about 8 of the players on the pitch were from the southeast. About 8 of the 11 players were from the southeast. We couldn't care less. We were all happy. The Hausas, the Yorubas, the Igbos were happy that we won that match, and we celebrated together and danced, and we were really happy as a country. So I think that there needs to be a lot of education on our people. And, this is deeper than we have. I've just come out of an election where people are so impoverished. In fact, the evolution is getting worse. It's no longer fault lines now. We are going into other things of impoverishing the people, inducing the people, and taking advantage of their vulnerability. It's becoming more complicated, and we are losing the essence of government and governance. We need to have this public conversation as per what should public office be like and what should be the limitations. Let me just end on this. One of the things I miss, and I really miss in this whole thing, was during this presidential election, there was the candidate of ADC, Mr. Dumebi Kachiko. He came up with what he called the Citizens Bill. And in that Citizens Bill that he proposed, every public officer was to enjoy what the public enjoy. Education, you cannot have private education for your children. Power, you cannot have private power for yourself. Whatever it is that the citizens enjoy, you must enjoy that same, privilege. That will make people in public office to work, even if it's in their own selfish personal interest. Look at our president-elect. He's taking off to London to cool off his feet, or one thing or the other. I don't know if that is the correct thing. Why has he not gone to Obudu Cattle Ranch to go and cool off his feet? Why London? Why has he not come to Ibno Beach to come and cool off his feet? So until we make public officers to know that where they decide to constitute or to preside over, they must live in that place, work in that place, eat in that place, and suffer whatever is the gains or the pains of that place. Until we have such a mindset, then we will not even make progress.
Well, it's not a surprise, Mr. Anyatok, that the politician in you just had to bring one thing or the other in. But can we just go to the sentiments that we're trying to, bridge here? Well, Chief Igbokwe, I mean, you've listened to all the, conversations that we've had so far. The concern that for me is that a sizable number of young people who go off the handle just by the things that they hear, mostly unresearched by them, or they are unable to research these things, but they hear it, they just go off with it. How do we begin to bring them back home? Alero quoted the first national anthem of Nigeria, though tribe and tongue may differ, in brotherhood we stand. But it would seem like right now there is mutual suspicion. How do we bring us back to the Nigerian nest?
It is very demoralizing what is happening now. I'll be frank with you. I thought things should have been getting better, but they're getting worse. This morning I was just asking myself, why? I thought in this jet age, so to say, that things would have been different from what used to happen in the past. And where all these things come about, I can't explain.
Now, there are those who, my apologies, there are those who will say they've always been there.
Yes.
Looking at what happened in the First Republic, that's segued into the military era at the time, and then into the Second Republic, on and on and on. It's just, as you said, the fault lines had always been there. they just seem to be getting wider and being exploited by a specific class of people.
Yes. Mostly selfish people. Self-interest is what, unfortunately, has been playing in Nigerian politics. So it continues advancing. Instead of making, you see, I was saying something before. I did not end it. I'll still come back to what you're saying. The broom that you see today, I can proudly say, I was one of the people that made it. That broom started with PSP. I used to chairman a company, non-executive chairman anyway, because I was still in Punch. But Uluonogorowa was there as a director, Dr. Esenibok, Dr. Harun Adamu, Masimbo, Victor Mobi, Kana Yesinolo, and that it was called KIP, Corporate Image Planners. It was our office on 79 Allen Avenue that people like the late Jakonde, Izuogu, former MD of Abeli Beku of Guinness, IREM from Benue, and so many of them. They used to come to our office, take one flat, and they would stay in their meeting till 3 a.m., you know, on Allen. So it was PSP. So by the time SDP came, the thing disappeared. I think another party took it. And that is the same broom we designed for, because they gave us the assignment, design logo for us.
Just to be clear, PSP is the People's Solidarity Party of 1979.
Yes, of Jakonde.
No, that was UPN. No. Jakonde was UPN.
UPN. Sorry, after the UPN, when the PSP came up, it was the broom that started it. And I'm telling you the names of people that used to come for meetings. Does not mean I was politically inclined. But you could see there is that political thing in me which has decided not to leave, but I'm still afraid going into this because of the system that we are operating. Self-interest. And this has widened to tribal sentiments.
What do you think is responsible for that exploitation of self-interest over national interest?
Yes, because the center is very strong. You need to keep a very low center. Let the regions or the states, whatever they have made, or whatever they have made it now, to be contributing to the. Once you see that there's nothing much you are going to get from there, I think that thing will start winning. That is okay. That's my belief.
Dr. Mohammed, I am from a minority in Nigeria, and when we talk about these cracks and this divide, we mainly talk about Hausa, Igbo, and Yoruba. And there are 247 others who are left out of this conversation, including my tribe. I'm Shekiri, among the smallest tribes in Nigeria. So when these conversations take place, what do you want people like us to say? Will I wait for a Shekiri person before I have a friend? Will I wait for a Shekiri doctor before I agree to be treated in a hospital? We are so few. Okay, an Igbo man can say to himself, I'll wait for an Igbo doctor, because the Igbos are many. A Hausa man can say, I'll wait for a Hausa doctor. But there are 247 other tribes who cannot afford that luxury. Where does all this conversation leave them?
Thank you. Let me start by correcting you. When you mentioned that Baba Gana Kingibe is a Hausa man, no. Baba Gana Kingibe is a Kanuri man from Borno State. That's during Abiola's regime.
It just so happens, Dr. Mohammed, that for as far as most Nigerians in the South are concerned, once you cross the river Niger, River Benue,
it's Hausa.
You are Hausa?
That's the mistake most of us are making. And you see, and it's even contributing to the debate of this divide. I want to say this. that for me, in my opinion, what is causing all this has to do with the elites. You know, the elites are manipulating this ethnic divides. And in order to go for the minority ethnic groups to have representation, that's the reason why Nigeria is practicing federal system of government, whereby powers are divided between the central government and the states. For instance, maybe you are from River State or from Cross River State. Definitely those small ethnic groups in Rivers and Cross River States will be the ones to lead the state. Even though many of us, are looking at the center, forgetting the states. And believing me, if we should concentrate on the state, we'll achieve a lot of development. Sometimes we forget about our governors. They have the responsibility also of developing the state. But in many cases, many governors could not even pay salaries. Now we have to go back to base, start from there, then before looking at the center. I agree with what the last speaker said. We should find a way of making the center less interesting. People should come back, as the federal system of government enshrined, that the powers, there's what you call concurrent list, residual list, and exclusive list. Come back to the concurrent list. Education, ask your governor. In terms of education, what are you going to do? What have you done? In terms of health, we should be asking our governors. It is not always that the center will be the one providing for our own development, for the services that architect Etok said.
Dr. Mohammed, just one thing, because I know that the clock is ticking thick and fast. What do we begin to tell the young people? Because there are many who are afraid that there are elements drumming, fanning the embers of the discord and beating the drums of war and asking for, protests and all those things. These are the people who are going to sentimentally go out. What do we begin to tell them? From the experiences we have had in the Civil War that my colleague Alero mentioned earlier, the riots that happened in various parts of Nigeria, including the About Women's riots, the Wete in the Southwest. What do we tell them? Even in the aftermath of the June 12, annulment that lasted about 5 to 6 years. What do we begin to tell young people now to let them know it's going to be worse if we do not take proactive action now?
Thank you. Let me look at it from two ways, long term and short term. For the short term, really, we need to start a massive awareness campaign, especially to educate our younger ones about the implication of allowing themselves to be manipulated by the elite, the selfish elites. And, we can start from the families. For instance, the media has a lot to play. And also, one dangerous aspect of media is the social media. The Nigerian government really needs to come up with something, maybe a regulatory mechanism. And what is paining me there is what the current politicians are setting up now, that they call it media team. And this media team are young ones going into social media disseminating wrong information, maybe about their oppositions, about other divides. I think Nigerian government need to do something, mostly in terms of regulation of social media. This is very important. And again, also the elite has to start. Should I call it elite revolution or elite transformation? We need to have elites that have Nigeria at heart, not elites that will always, maybe their own target is just to get to that terms of affairs. And if the elites fail to revolutionize themselves or reform themselves, as time goes on, I'm seeing that there's going to be revolution from below. And revolution from below is always dangerous and it can be destructive. It is important that the Nigerian government has to do something about regulating these social media outfits.
Ezekiel, it's been suggested that Nigeria set up a National Cohesion and Integration Commission, which will promote inter-ethnic and inter-religious understanding, like it's in Kenya. What are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, the very first thing is that there was a line of thought that I initiated, which will be foundational to this discussion. And that line of thought is that politics is the reason, state capture is the essence. And for as long as service is not the essence for seeking public office, for so long will politicians go out of their way to seek what is called territorial advantage, strategic advantage. And for so long will they exploit the vulnerability of the people in the sense that I need to support this man so that when he wins, I will be able to gain from him. Now, when you understand that politics is the door and that government is the vehicle that drives all of us, it is the man in government that will set up the policies. It is the man in government that will execute. So whatever I say now to you, if the man in government feels that such cohesion will go against his personal interest and strategic advantage, he will not make it work. And you as an outsider, there's nothing you can do about it. We really need to come, like the doctor said, into this public enlightenment. Now, the conversation, if this conversation was some weeks back, it would have been elect people that think this way, but they have been elected. So we can now start to appeal to the people that have been elected for them to consider the essence of their being there. Chapter 2, section 14, subsection 2b, that the security and the welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government. This issue of fault lines or the divides are instruments in the hands of the politicians. And unless we, tackle it fundamentally, foundationally, then we'll just be having discussions that lead us nowhere. There's something else that Doctor has said again, and I agree with. Let the elite, I think that the biggest problem that we have in Nigeria is the elite are either uninformed or they are docile and complacent. And I wonder why you call yourself an enlightened man and you are comfortable to get into a vehicle that is driven by a partially impaired. There's something fundamentally wrong with you. The elites need to know that politics is no longer a dirty game or their game. Politics is that door that leads to governance, and that governance is that vehicle that we are all involved in. So the time has come when we need to know who the driver of the vehicle is. If we are not electing him, we stay as close as possible to where he is and guide him in our own larger interest. If we allow what is going on to go on, the politicians who know how to be streetwise, they know how to handle it. We the professionals will be the worst for it. That's why people keep telling, why you get involved in this, why you sacrifice, it's in my own interest, because one day, one madman will just enter there and say, look, let's have we want to be all traditional from today. We have to tie wrapper, whether you're a banker or not. If you don't tie wrapper, and that will be the law. If you don't agree, you leave Nigeria.
Okay.
So we need to see government as something more serious, more important, than we, the elite, need to come involved. Don't blame the poor man for collecting 1 naira because he's impoverished. Blame yourself. Look at the turnout in the last election. Where were all the people that could not be bought? Where were all the people that were reasonable and could rationalize and tell, this is the person I want, that is the person I don't want? That they could have come in and their votes would have counted and made a difference. Where were they? Instead, they are telling you to go and campaign in the villages. The votes are in the villages. And at the end, 23% of people come to vote because the other 50% that are enlightened and know it would not come out. I think we need to start to have a conversation.
Ezekiel has referred to politics being lucrative, and you also alluded to it when you said the center was too powerful.
That's right.
My issue now is, if that is going to change, it is these same politicians who are going to make the law to change it. I mean, do you see them ever doing that? Reduce the power at the center and devolve power to the states or whatever? Or making politics not so attractive, so that only those who are really ready to serve present themselves?
You see, I don't see it possible because of that self-interest. But if we start with our lawmakers and get the right people to lead, at least it could be the beginning. We are talking about who will be Senate President, who will be all that. And they are looking at along the party lines. Why not look for somebody who has done something that benefited the entire nation while he is in that place and make him Senate President? Why must he be, oh, it must be my party because I'm in majority and all that? You know, it will create more divide.
Emiloko.
Yes. It won't work. If, look, I know I don't want to promote anybody, but if you ask me who rightly should be the Senate President, I can tell you.
Oh, you can?
Yes, I can tell you.
Okay.
And it might not be from the majority, you know. Somebody who has done something that benefited the entire nation. No question of doing something that has benefited your constituency. Because that doesn't work. I mean, we know about someone who has made Nigeria to start gaining what they've been losing for 20 years back, going to almost 1 trillion every year. It was somebody that researched it.
But you know, one of those things, the interesting angle to what you are saying, yes, Chief Igokwe, now is, as Architect Nyaituk said, many of these young people don't even know some of these things that you're talking about.
Yes.
They are moving only on
one
the
direction.
air of what's trending, what is in popular domain. What are people saying? Let me join the bandwagon. Most of the time, the bandwagon is not correct. For instance, there was this rumor that the Chief Justice of Nigeria traveled out to the UK, while our judicial correspondent told me that the man was just observing Ramadan in his house. Right there. Meanwhile, the news is that the man is on a wheelchair somewhere in the UK.
Wrong information.
How do we get young people into this patriotic mindset to the point that we say, whatever is not patriotic, I will not believe it? How do we do that?
I think it can be done by educating them, by informing them, by making sure that they got involved even in the governance.
Do you not feed it to them in their mother's breast milk? Start from there.
Well, then we'll be talking about till kingdom come before we can achieve that. But
because if they're looking at the examples which are being set by us,
yes,
they're not going to go far.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying the same thing with you. You know, and this question of tribalism must be cut off.
Yes, you are a Nigerian first.
You're a Nigerian first.
So all those forms that say your state of origin
should be removed. For instance, my kids were born here. They are Lagosians, as far as I'm concerned, from A to Z.
Irrespective of whatever the name is.
Of course. And look, when you talk about, there were pace setters like Olua Bodere, who knew me from nowhere, an Igbo guy, an Igbo boy, and he saw in me and said, look, I want you to stay here and help me. That was his statement. Because he's so destabilized. We need people like that.
Okay. Let's take the final comments of Dr. Mohammed as well. Crucial first steps for be it the president or the state governments. 30 seconds. What would be your recommendation?
You know, people have to look at certain qualities before making their choice or choices. This person, is he nationalistic in outlook? Is he the person that has Nigeria at heart? Is he firm? Will he be the person to always accept criticism and change? I think this should be the criteria for choosing our leaders.
Okay. Let me ask you, Mr. Yaitok, final words, 30 seconds.
I'll tell you this. I want to tell all Nigerians that the drivers have already been chosen. Let us go as close as possible to their ears and not wish, but help. These people did not get in there to help you. Let us help ourselves. Probably for the first time in my life, I will consider getting an appointment. Let us get to the ears, assuming I don't get, because the battle is not yet ended. Let us go to the ears of the people in power, all the good people, all the elites. Please come into getting as close as possible to the drivers and just keep talking and hoping that one day they will hear you and do the right thing. They don't know the right thing to do. Don't assume. They don't know. They just wanted power. Now they have power. Please help them to do the right thing. Don't be complacent.
Okay. Ezekiel Nia Etuk, founder, Nigeria First, who joined us via Zoom from Uyo. And we also had joining us from Zaria, Dr. Shoaibu Mohammed of the Department of Political Science and International Studies of the Ahmadu Bello University. And in the studio with us in Lagos, we had Chief Edwin Igbokwe, Pioneer General Manager of the Punch newspapers. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming to share your insight with us this morning.
Just to also mention that we expected Dr. Dapo Akinoshun, a senior advocate of Nigeria, to join in this conversation, but the conversation my colleagues had yesterday about the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway traffic logjam has kept him locked down. So sincere apologies, Dr. Akinoshun. Certainly, Mr. Akinoshun, certainly one of these days we'll be able to feature you again. But thank you so much.
And remember, you are a Nigerian first before you are Igbo or Yoruba or even Shekiri. Sunrise will be right back.